Audit queries. The audit query is a very powerful reporting tool that allows you to query transactions based on certain criteria that you set. It also allows for AML or compliance officers to run queries and reports on things such as LCTs or large cash transactions and EFTs, electronic fund transfers. So I'm going to take you through how we can actually run an audit query. Onto your modules, we need to open the journal module. So clicking here. Now once in our journal module, down across the bottom you'll notice the audit query button. So we need to click right here. And now we're on our search criteria tab. So we can enter in all of the criteria that you want to put into this query. So let's start at the top. We can do a date range. So we can apply a date range by checking this box, and we can set our specific date ranges right here. We can, for example, say, let's say today's date, and then we can plus and minus days and months or even years. So let's go back a couple of months, and then tab down, we can now just put to, let's say, today's date. So we'll say OK. Now obviously if you want to take off this date range, we just simply uncheck, but we can just apply that right here. Now if you're a multi-branch operation, you can actually run queries and searches in certain branches. So this is where you would put your branch ID of the specific branch that you want to run this query on. And then we can also run these queries specifically on one customer ID. So we can type into this field, if we know the name of the customer, I can just type in Tony, let's hit enter. And we actually only have one. You may have several that you need to choose from. And we can pick the customer right here, or we can just cancel out. Say we want to leave that blank, so then we can just go down to our next criteria categories. We can check these boxes, so exclude all companies. So this will now exclude any of the companies in your search criteria that you're going to run these queries on. And you know, obviously this is optional, but if we check right here, it's also going to exclude all MSBs, so managed service businesses, or exclude all banks and wholesalers. If you want to actually just exclude maybe one of those, you can't actually uncheck unless you uncheck exclude all companies, and now we can edit these ones. So we can just have one or the other, or we can have neither, it's up to you. And then the system automatically defaults to exclude any inside transactions that you've done under yourself. So anytime you've done any self transactions within your business. But if you want to include them, it gives you the option here, so you can check that box. But typically you would probably want to exclude these, so we'll just let the system default that to exclude. We can now filter by account as well. So by going into this field, we can just hit this button, or we can just type in the name of the account if we already know it. And we can select a certain account that we can run the query within. I'm going to leave this one blank. We can also search by a certain currency as well. That's where we would enter that into this field. Now down here from amount in local currency, we can put in a range if we're looking for any transactions, let's say, that are $2,000 US dollar equivalent. So any currency that's equivalent to our local currency, US dollars 2,000. And we can leave this blank if we want to go to no limit, or we can actually put in a range. So let's just put in a range up to 6,000 and then tab out. We now have options that we can select down below. You can select off certain ones, or you can just simply click check all if you know you want to check all of these. So it's going to run the query in our cash transactions, accounts, bank wires, e-wire, check, item, buy and sells. Now over slightly to the right, we have exclude local currency transactions. Now every transaction has two sides, so it has a debit and a credit. So I'm going to run this query, and I'm going to show you what it looks like when we leave this blank. So we're including our local currency transactions. We can also include buys, include sells. So we can just do all of our incoming, or we can just do all of our outgoing. We'll do both for this query. Now to run the query, down in the right bottom, we've got a button, Perform Query. We just simply click here, and you'll be brought to the next tab, which is View Query Results. you'll see all of the transactions that have actually met the criteria that we put in. Now before, when I was talking about the button that we were going to include both sides of the transactions, you can see that when that happens, you'll get both lines in this query. So it's showing that we have both of these come up in our query, but they're actually the same transaction, because you can tell with the credit and the debit that has occurred is the exact same. So if we want to now modify that criteria and modify this query, we can go back to our Search Criteria tab, and we can now exclude those local currency transactions. So let's see what that looks like. Now we need to perform the query again. So when you change any criteria on this page, you must now go back down to the right-hand button and perform the query again. Now you'll see that our search results have actually reduced in number because we've taken away the local transactions. So we just have the one side of the transaction. We can go back again and we can change any kinds of criteria that we want to. Now say if you are a AML or compliance auditor and you wanted to run an LCT, so a large cash transaction query. We actually have a button that we can just simply click, and it will populate the criteria that you would typically want to put in for an LCT, which is making it very simple, very easy for you. But that being said, once we push this, we can still make modifications within this. So let's say we want to exclude the local currency transactions again anyway, and we only want to do our incoming. And then we just need to click Perform Query again, and we don't actually have anything that meets that criteria, but we can go back to that search criteria and change it to whatever criteria that we want. But this is just showing you that we have this LCT button that we can simply click just for speed to bring through everything that you wanted to on that criteria. Now I'm going to show you how to that you can actually print these results, and you can also export these results. So let's go back to our criteria that we had before, just for a quick example. And you'll see what we have right here is our results. Now up at the top right, we can click on the button Print. And for this demo, I'm just going to open in PDF Preview just for showing you how this looks. And you'll see this is how it will print. So it's got all of the main information from your query right here when you print. So let's just exit out of that. And in a previous video, I showed you how to export to Excel. So you can do the same for this query as well. So you have your HTML export button. You can name it, so let's just name it query, and I'm going to save it to my desktop, but you save it wherever. Click on save, and you see that you've got the query down below. Now that because we're on a Mac, we need to change this to HTML, and yes, like I showed before. And then we want to simply drag and drop it into Excel by holding down Command and Option on your Mac. And we've now exported that into an Excel document as well. But the details on how to do that I have shown you in a previous video for exporting to Excel. So that is how you run queries on certain search criteria that you put in using our audit query tool.